Welcome to the Human Nature Channel. I'm your host, Alex Tamsula, and what am I doing here in my apartment? I got the old danger sandblasting sign back on. Missed you, buddy. I filmed this script up at my dad's farm garage last Tuesday night / Wednesday morning. I then got home Wednesday and loaded all the video files into my computer, and to my absolute horror, the first two opening clips were missing. Did I accidentally delete them? Looks that way. One all-nighter right down the rat hole. Now, deleting files in my Everio camera can be tricky. If I delete a clip, the camera next asks if I want to delete the very first video file, no matter how many I've already done. I always have to tell it to cancel. This time, I must have gotten confused. Zigged when I should have zagged. Usually, I do my music video first, and I'm always wearing something different, so there's a visual cue to tell me don't delete this. But I didn't do my museo first this time, and look what happened. It's a shame, too, because there's at least 25 minutes of farm garage footage I can't use, and the accidentally deleted stuff was pretty good. I could kick myself. But I have my script, and there's no reason I can't turn this into a weekly video, so here we go. I think I have everything I need. I have this little item lent to me by my silent partner. He grew up on a dairy farm like I did, and although he was on a working dairy farm, my dad used our ex-dairy farm for other purposes. An off-the-book slaughterhouse, if you must know. In the parking lot of Dad's place of employment, he used to sell steaks and roasts and other specialty meats out of the trunk of his car. I grew up saying, "Oh, Mom, not steaks again." Anyway, this device is called a nose lead. You would take the bald ends of these pliers and put them in the bovine's nostrils and basically pull it along to wherever you want. It looks a lot nastier than it is, but if your girlfriend has one of these in her purse, you may want to rethink that relationship. I have my pointer with a magnet on the end, and I have a tire gauge. Where do I begin to tell the story of how great a love can be? The sweet love story that is older than the sea. The simple truth about the love she brings to me. Where do I start? And last but not least, I have an actual can of worms. This is for fishermen, obviously. Another item lent to me by my silent partner, and it is pretty nifty. It's got a clip on the side so you can hook it on your belt. Let's open it up and see what's inside. Uh-oh, plantation, Squirrel Hill. Better keep that closed for now. We don't want to open that can of worms. So, before we jump into the heart of tonight's video, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you about my Twitter page. Oh, I do love Twitter so very much. I tweet all the time. In fact, I got on Twitter back in April 2015, the same day Hillary Clinton announced she was running for president of the United States. Right now, I'm at 51.9 thousand tweets, and I don't see myself slowing down on Twitter anytime soon. I enjoy the challenge of getting my point across in 280 characters or less. As defined by the early 18th century English poet Alexander Pope, brevity is the soul of wit. And I would add, buddy, that's some shit. Lately, I've been calling my Twitter page the trunk of a T-bird. Now, for the longest time, I just called it Alex J. Tamsula, which was fine. I wasn't interested in hiding behind some anonymous handle. If I'm going to take a gigantic shit on someone, I want them to know who's doing it. Then about a year ago, I decided to get a little creative and call my page Right Wing Lefty, which I thought was pretty funny. Then I had another brainstorm. After I did my video number 28, the Las Vegas shooting, Steven with a PH, I thought it might be fun to call myself BB or pellet gun, using the now immortal words of Jesus Campos, which he uttered after he was shot. In my video number 28, I speculated that BB or pellet gun would have made a nifty pair of code names for Mary Lou and Steve. If Jesus Campos had to say over an unencrypted transmission who was behind everything suddenly going all to hell, that would have worked. Then I came up with an even better idea, and here is what inspired me. I Heard You Paint Houses by Charles Brandt, a book recommended to me by my stalwart friend Sean Smith. This book is the gift that keeps on giving. I'm going to read you some very interesting excerpts from it. But first, I gotta set the stage. This is the biography of Frank the Irishman Sheeran, one of the most fascinating mobsters I ever heard of. A World War II infantryman, spent 411 days in combat, almost the entire length of combat operations in Europe. Sheeran was a pretty tough guy to begin with. After the war, while driving a truck through New York State, a chance meeting at a truck stop with Russell Bufalino, one of the most powerful mob bosses you've never heard of, was the start of Sheeran's long career as a strong-arm specialist and hitman. It was through Russell Bufalino that Sheeran was introduced to Jimmy Hoffa. Hoffa and Sheeran became very close friends. And now, story time with your bad old Uncle Alex. This is from pages 162 and 163 of I Heard You Paint Houses. One morning, a few days to a week before November 22nd, 1963, I got a call from Jimmy to go to a payphone. When I got there, the only thing Jimmy said was, "Go see your friend." I drove up to Russell's, and when he answered the door, all he told me to do was, "Go see your friends in Brooklyn. They've got something for you to take to Baltimore." That was not like Russell. He was setting the tone for whatever this was. I turned around and drove to Monty's restaurant in Brooklyn. It was a hangout for the Genovese's people. It's the oldest Italian restaurant in New York City. It's in South Brooklyn, not far from the Gowanus Canal. Excellent food. On the left of the restaurant, they have their own parking lot. I parked and went in and stood at the bar. Tony Pro got up from his table and went to the back and returned with a duffel bag. He handed it to me and told me, "Go down to Campbell's Cement in Baltimore where you went that time with the truck. Our friend's pilot will be there. He's waiting for this." You didn't have to spend all that time in combat to know you had a duffel bag with 3 rifles in it. I knew it was rifles, but I had no idea what it was. When I got there, Carlos's pilot, David Ferry, was there with another guy I knew from Monty's who was with Genovese. He's gone now, but he has a nice family. There's no reason to bring his name into it. He said, "How's your friend?" I said, "He's doing good." He said, "You got something for us?" With the tone Russell had set, I didn't even get out of my car. I gave him the keys. He opened the trunk, took the bag, we said goodbye, and away I went home. Okay, the next excerpt comes from after the fateful sit-down dinner at Broadway Eddie's in Philadelphia in early 1975 between Russell Bufalino, Philly mob boss Angelo Bruno, Jimmy Hoffa, and Frank Sheeran. Nobody was happy with what was said. There are people higher up than me that feel that you are demonstrating a failure to show appreciation for Dallas, said Russell Bufalino. From page 241, here is Jimmy Hoffa in his own words. "If anything unnatural happens to Hoffa, I can tell you all hell will break loose. I've got more records and lists ready to be mailed out to the media than you can imagine. I've had too many motherfuckers in my life I thought I could trust. I need more people like you. And I have them now. I know who my friends are." Jimmy, you're doing a lot of puffing that has people concerned. That's just the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg. Let me tell you, Dallas. Did you hear that word tonight? Remember that package you took to Baltimore? I didn't know it then, but it turns out it was high-powered rifles for the Kennedy hit in Dallas. The stupid bastards lost their own rifles in the trunk of a Thunderbird that crashed when the driver got drunk. That pilot for Carlos was involved in delivering the replacements that you brought down. Those fuckers used both of us on that deal. We were patsies. What do you think of that? They had fake cops and real cops involved in it. Jack Ruby's cops were supposed to take care of Oswald, but Ruby bungled it. That's why he had to go in and finish the job on Oswald. If he didn't take care of Oswald, what do you think they would have done to him? Put Ruby on a meat hook. Don't kid yourself. Santo and Carlos and Giancana and some of their element, they were all in on Kennedy. Every single one of the same cast of characters that were in on the Bay of Pigs. They even had a plot to kill Castro with Momo and Roselli. I've got enough to hang everybody, and every last bit of it comes out if anything unnatural happens to me. They will all pay. Those who fucked me will pay. Jimmy. Wow. The trunk of a Thunderbird. Where have I heard that before? Well, I'll tell you. Oswald talked. The new evidence in the JFK assassination by the husband and wife investigative journalist team of Ray and Mary LaFontaine. I've read a lot of books on the JFK assassination, and this probably is the best. Nowhere near complete on all the things Oswald was in on, like the bioweapon to be used on Castro, but still, in its own way, an amazing work. I'm going to read you some selected paragraphs from the first chapter to give you some idea what was going on 5 days before the JFK assassination. Not many blocks from Trunken, Maine that same evening, November 18th, 1963, Frank Ellsworth also waited. Ellsworth was an agent of another federal agency, the Internal Revenue Service's Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Tax, now the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Working undercover, the ATF revenuer had arranged with a crooked gun shop owner on whom he was gathering evidence to make a big buy of stolen guns, military rifles and automatic weapons, the latest and the best stuff. The gun shop owner had told Ellsworth were to be waiting on Monday. A car would meet him there with the merchandise, he said. But though the ATF agent and another undercover partner stayed at the appointed spot well into the night, the promised weapons never showed up. In a later paragraph we read, at the corner of Hall and Elm, the patrol car nudged in behind the Thunderbird, which was stopped at a light. The car, pointing north on Hall, appeared to be on the verge of making a wrong turn onto one-way Elm, and moreover, Officer Allen would testify, started into the intersection before the light changed. When the patrolman turned on their top light and honked for the T-Bird to pull over, the suspect in the passenger seat turned back and saw them. He immediately said something to the driver, whereupon the convertible squealed across Elm, racing north on Hall with the police car in pursuit. The desperate chase through downtown traffic reached a speed of 60 miles an hour. 5 blocks later, at Hall and Junius, the Thunderbird plowed between 2 cars stopped at a light, sideswiping both, and continued on to Gaston. There it tried to make a left, missed the turn, and crashed head-on into a utility pole. Finally, on the morning after the crash, Tuesday, November 19th, Dallas Station ATF agent Frank Ellsworth read in the paper of the capture of 2 men in a car laden with contraband weapons, and realized why his planned undercover buy of guns the previous evening failed to materialize. It had been intercepted by Dallas police, foiling Ellsworth's bead on the gun shop owner who set up the purchase, a young man named John Thomas Masson. The capture had blown the ATF agent's cover with Masson, who also had read the papers. Masson was livid, crawling the walls, Ellsworth said 30 years later. He thought I'd set the whole thing up. He never spoke to me again. The trunk of a T-Bird. Can I put two and two together, or can I put two and two together? The truck of a T-Bird on Twitter is just to let you know that when it comes to Alex, you know what you're in for. Okay, let's get started. First, we will open with some Las Vegas shooting truth community news. Eric Peters has uploaded his latest video, Las Vegas shooting Mary Lou Danley's timeline. This video is about Mary Lou Danley's actions on the night of the Route 91 Harvest Festival massacre while in the Philippines. I like this video a lot because of two big questions tackled here. What did Mary Lou know, and when did she know it? Eric gives us a track of events in Las Vegas paralleled with the 3-hour time difference in Manila. I don't want to steal any of Eric's thunder and tell you what he found, so I've included a link in the description to his video and you can watch it for yourself. But while I was watching Eric's video, I had a couple of thoughts. First, in my last video, I almost included this line. Just about everything that could be said about the Las Vegas shooting has already been said. But I scratched that at the last minute after thinking, yeah, but is that really true? I came to the conclusion, not necessarily. Even though so much information has been put out there and analyzed and debated already, Eric proves that even though we as content creators have been slowing down in terms of our output, which is to be expected nearly 2 years after the events of October 1st, 2017, we should not underestimate the determination of a sharp-eyed investigator. I'm reminded of something I said in an earlier video. The context in which the Route 91 Harvest Festival massacre occurred is still woefully incomplete. The other reason Eric's video is important is he raises a question about what Mary Lou did or had done for her, and I'd love to hear her explain that on the witness stand during a grand jury proceeding, if one ever gets opened on the Las Vegas shooting. A grand jury. There's another strategy along with presenting our material to the U.S. House of Representatives that we all should consider. So, nice work, Eric. Our second bit of news is the return of Mike Turber. Sunday night he did a live stream, which unfortunately I missed since I got in late. And by the time I checked my email before bed, I saw his stream had just ended. Rats. I hate missing his live stream because it gets so lonely here in Pittsburgh. With the exception of my silent partner, none of my other friends want to get anywhere near stories about insufficiently investigated crimes. Sometimes I get the feeling they don't want to know. But be that as it may, Mike was looking rested and fit and ready to rock and roll. I will make every effort to be there for his next live stream. Third and finally, I did notice on Sunday that John Cullen had posted a new video. At first, I wasn't going to watch it, but it was only 11 minutes long or so, and my curiosity got the best of me. So, I watched Cullen's video Monday morning, and it turned into a classic case of me changing the topic from what I had originally planned on doing, which was going to be about Brian Hodge. I decided instead that since there was a lot more going on in John's video that deserved comment, I'm going to go with that. I'm still assembling material on Hodge, who is something of a cipher, and this should give me the opportunity to give him a more thorough going over next week. Anyway, here we go with John Cullen. The title of his latest video is, Does New Las Vegas Shooting Footage Show a Second and Third Shooter? You'll find a link to his video in the notes section below so you can watch it for yourself. You'll also see some back and forth comments between us. The big time at last. Anyway, in typical John Cullen fashion, he begins by talking to us through his use of hashtag title cards. Hashtag Eyewitnesses Matter, he informs us. No argument there. But keep that in mind because I'll have something to say later about what constitutes an eyewitness. Even though Cullen presents some new cell phone video of Mandalay Bay as the attack was in progress, it's still the same flashing lights in the sky, accentuated with his patented flashing red circles. And overall it amounts to same old from John Cullen. He's just recycling material. Interestingly enough, in this video he says 3 or more helicopters, which sounds as if he's walking back the assertion of 6 helicopters, which he made in his last interview with Jason Goodman on Crowdsource the Truth. That is suspicious in itself. It's as if getting on Crowdsource required Cullen to hype his material for Goodman's audience, giving them something new, selling the sizzle, not the steak, as it were. Yet in this video he's back to 3 or more helicopters. This just adds to my profound sense of disappointment with Jason Goodman and John Cullen. Initially, after the Las Vegas shooting, I took the YouTube channels Crowdsource the Truth and John E. Hoover more or less seriously, giving them the benefit of the doubt on what they presented, hoping more substantial information would come down the road to bolster claims they were putting their reputations behind. But it is now abundantly clear to me that neither Cullen or Goodman are particularly interested in being critical thinkers. And I have to say that what the two of them are doing in their respective YouTube venues really doesn't amount to anything more than fear porn. Can you see how this is an egregious exploitation of the victims and survivors of the Route 91 Harvest Festival massacre, as well as the families of the victims and survivors? If I knew then what I know now about these two, some of my earlier videos where I mentioned them in a more complimentary fashion would have been different. I have finished reading S.I. Hayakawa's Language and Thought in Action, a relatively short book that I highly recommend. It is an excellent primer on the subject of semantics, which now happens to be my new favorite subject. With my newly aroused sensitivity towards how language is used and abused, let's take a look at the way John Cullen says things. Not long into his video, he gives us this. Our hypothesis: the Las Vegas shooting was an aerial attack conducted by 3 or more helicopters. Then we get more text, this time saying, we based our hypothesis on repeated observations of the same phenomenon. That made me laugh because it seems like all he's saying is, I'm just looking at the same old shit and coming to the same old dumbass conclusion, and here at John E. Hoover, we hope you don't catch us at it. Cullen presents his so-called evidence in the form of what-if questions, so he's qualifying the hell out of everything he says. Even in his notes section, he says, we could be wrong, but that is unlikely. Now, what-if questions are not necessarily something to be criticized. I've done the same thing myself for years. What if CNN told Barbara Olson, who worked for them, that it was okay to stay in Washington, D.C. one more day to celebrate her husband Ted Olson's birthday, which happened to be on September 11th, and then take a September 11th flight back to L.A. because that's what Hillary Clinton would have wanted? Question mark. Like I said, I do the same thing. But unlike me, John pulls the rug out from under us by insisting his helicopter story is a certainty. I don't sell certainty. All I sell are troubling circumstantial cases, and I'll be the first to admit it. But John Cullen doesn't seem to be constrained by such inhibitions. What if, we see in more text, John Cullen was right all along? What gives with John slipping into the third person, by the way? Anyhow, he continues. What if the Vegas attack really was commandos in helicopters? I thought it was supposed to be Saudi Air National Guard, but we'll let that one slide because John has something more important to tell us. He needs to imply a threat. What would that mean? Where does that leave you? Your family? Now what is John Cullen trying to do? Sell us bomb shelters? If I really wanted to get scared at the possibility of getting killed by a helicopter gunship, I'll pull out my copy of Blue Thunder with Roy Scheider and watch that again. Yet, still John persists. What would it say about the narrative huggers and helicopter deniers that deride Cullen's work? We see through John Cullen like a screen door? And helicopter deniers? Oh, get the fuck out of here, John. But the kicker is the text we see at the very end. Hashtag it's not a theory. Now wait one gosh darn second here. He had spent most of the video presenting what he called our hypotheses, which is synonymous with the word theory, but at the end he's saying hashtag it's not a theory. John Cullen blatantly contradicts himself by trying to have it both ways. It's a hypothesis, but it's not a theory. You'd get laughed out of logic class trying to put that in your term paper, John. But I'll tell you what is not a theory, and that is John Cullen or Johnny Hoover or whoever the hell he is completely full of dookie hookie. I put a comment on John's video, does new Las Vegas shooting footage show a second and third shooter? And here is what I said to him. Hey John, I have a question. Was the shooting from these multiple helicopters happening simultaneously or individually? In other words, did one helicopter fire and stop, and then the next one opened fire and stopped, and so on? Or did these multiple helicopters all open up at the same time? The reason I want to know is if we have these helicopters all firing at the same time, and if your flashing lights above and behind the Mandalay Bay are the helicopters firing on the concert goers, and if your flashing lights above the Luxor are the helicopters firing on the concert goers, then that would create a crossfire, would it not? John did answer that question since I posted this by saying talking guns, which would have taken their turns. But I have yet to hear a survivor of the Route 91 Harvest Festival massacre come forward saying they were caught in a crossfire or even use that word. If you know of a video where somebody says we got caught in a crossfire, please send it my direction. For a concert of that size, with such a demographic as country western fans, you would think by now there would be at least one combat veteran or even somebody still in the military but on leave who would come forward and say something like this. I was in the infantry and I've done training exercises with helicopter air support, or I was in Iraq or Afghanistan and I've had experience with air cavalry, or I know a crossfire when I see it. Produce somebody like that to really bolster your claims, John. Produce somebody like that saying, yes, John Cullen is 100% right. In your notes section, you say you have eyewitness footage. Sorry, John, but eyewitness means something specific to me, like somebody who saw something with their own eyes rather than going back to a video and saying, oh, will you look at that? An eyewitness gives us a first-hand report, and that would lend more credence to its believability. A video seen after the fact is a second-hand report, and believability suffers, as it would with a third-hand or fourth-hand report. If John Cullen thinks he's delivering more clarity, he's going in the wrong direction. Do you know who was one of the most reliable witnesses to the Route 91 Harvest Festival massacre? Jason Aldean himself. From the KTNV Las Vegas website update, Jason Aldean describes waves of people going down during the 1 October shooting. Waves? If it was a crossfire, don't you think people would have been falling down willy-nilly rather than something that could be described as succinctly as a wave? What say you, John? Now, I'm not saying John Cullen is wrong. What I'm saying is John Cullen is not believable. Maybe he does pull a rabbit out of the hat at the end of the day, and I have to eat crow. Fine. But John is going to need his very own trunk of a T-bird moment to nail that down. And honestly, I don't think that's ever going to happen. This is why I'm not happy with John Cullen at this late stage of things. If the Las Vegas shooting truth community wants to get the United States House of Representatives to reopen the Route 91 investigation, people like John Cullen are not helping. He gives our critics reason not to take us seriously. Same with Jason Goodman putting his common sense into abeyance by seemingly endorsing what Cullen is saying. And don't get me started on serial trespasser Laura Loomer and her crazy antics. Her stupid shit just reflects back on us badly. Oh, some congressional staffer might say, are you with that woman who wore the sombrero on California Governor Gavin Newsom's front lawn? Not really. I know she was in Las Vegas after the shooting and did some reporting, but no, I'm not with her. Oh, Laura is running for Congress in Florida's 21st Congressional District, by the way. You will see a biker wearing his colors while riding a girl's bicycle before you ever see Laura Loomer in Congress. John Cullen, Jason Goodman, and Laura Loomer are making it harder, if not impossible, to have the Las Vegas shooting reopened on the congressional level, and that really pisses me off. So, we'll finish up tonight by once again mentioning S.I. Hayakawa's language in thought and action. I will put on my social engineer hat for this. Woo woo! Anyway, what made Hayakawa's book interesting to me is he identifies ways in which we use language that are almost automatic processes inside us, and he gives these processes names. Abstraction, for example. We never notice how we or the people around us or what is said in media goes from low abstraction to high abstraction and back again all the time. We don't stop and think about these things because if we did, we'd probably not be able to speak. But knowing about the constant process of abstraction adds a previously unseen dimension to communication. Hayakawa explains how abstraction of language involves a value orientation. First off, there is the two-valued orientation, and it's very easy to understand. Good versus evil, us versus them, Federalists versus anti-Federalists, capitalism versus communism, Coke versus Pepsi, shooters on the ground versus single shooter in the hotel, everybody versus Mike Turber. It is the lowest level of abstraction because it is the most simplistic. And I hope it isn't lost on you that this happens to be the level at which political campaigns operate. Republican versus Democrat. What else do you need to know? Hayakawa then takes us to the next stage, which is multi-valued orientation. That's the level of more accurate descriptions of reality. The map is not the territory, so how good is your map anyway? World War II was not simply liberty versus fascism. It also had something to do with the U.S. government prior to the war, putting the squeeze on Japan's oil supplies with embargoes of shipments, prompting an already militarized nation like Japan into striking back. The world is not black and white in the ways politicians describe it to us. And the politicians know this. They're not that stupid. But they instinctively understand that it's easier to persuade people with a two-valued orientation because a two-valued orientation aims directly at the gut. Sadly, when that happens, most people have left their critical thinking skills with the hat check girl. To the Las Vegas shooting truth community, and especially the content creators making investigation videos on YouTube, two-valued orientation can only hurt us. It makes us look like a squabbling pack of crazies. It keeps us from being a unified force that convinced the Attorney General of Nevada to convene a grand jury on the Las Vegas shooting. It keeps us from persuading the U.S. House of Representatives and the House Judiciary Committee that they have a legal and moral responsibility to reopen the Las Vegas shooting investigation. We as citizens have a right, guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, to petition our government for redress. But there's nothing that says they have to pay any attention to us. We have to have our act together to accomplish that. So, do we? Anyway, that's it for now. Unfortunately, no song tonight, although there is one in the works. I got my brother's end of summer party to help prepare for, and I'm a little pressed for time. With the song, I just have to figure out how to do the lead and background singers at the same time. That shouldn't be too hard. Later. It's raining. Oh well.